Do you know what we do here at DIY Designer Homestead? Because we would love to share the story with you. There's so much going on. And Steve runs the whole kit and caboodle, the whole damn thing. You run the whole damn thing. Welcome back to Fly the Coop, everybody. Today we have Steve Wasnick, my love, on the show, and we are going to talk about DIY and all things
We're
homestead.
talking about you. You lie.
No.
Yes.
No.
No, that's not what we're talking about. No.
What is DIY and what is the homestead?
No. What part of no don't no means no? I have a surprise for you today.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to talk about you. Yeah.
Wow. Please
fact,
share with me. I'd love to learn.
Well, no, seriously. I didn't really know what we were going to talk about today, but it did dawn on me, and it has something to do with one of your clients that you're currently working with. And I was asking you questions about him yesterday. He's he and his wife. He is an attorney, and you mentioned to me that he's representing himself on the sale side. No, the buy side. Buy side of his house.
Purchase.
Yeah.
It's
details, minor
People
details.
do, especially attorneys.
But, he's an attorney, right? And he can and should, frankly, he probably has some of his underlings doing the paperwork, so he doesn't actually have to do anything. And yeah, so I mean, that makes sense. And you even said, like, if I were an attorney, I would do the same thing.
I would.
Yeah. So
yeah, I would.
Now, that being said, it's also interesting to note that, here's this attorney, certainly a very capable individual, but, he'll hire Cari Ann to sell their home. And it just kind of got me thinking in general about and perhaps we should edit this and put this kind of at the front because it's sort of a hook. What you do, to my mind, from an outside perspective, and you don't get an outside perspective because you're you.
That's true.
you don't necessarily see it, but I get to see, and hear a lot of what goes on kind of behind the scenes and the why behind. I think there's a lot of people that just frankly don't really understand why you're so good at what you do. And I think you have a hard time explaining that to people. And so that kind of dawned on me. It's like, well, why would an attorney, again, capable, could certainly sell their own home, but why would they want to hire you? And it's because
please do share.
It's because you are so good at what you do. But again, it's kind of, I guess, indiscriminate to most people in terms of it's hard to understand why you're so good at what you do. And the hook behind it is how Cari Ann is similar to a campfire. Which seems a little odd, right? However, most people, in my experience, and understand that I'm an outdoor guy, right? I'm all about making a fire when I get a chance. I often smell like smoke.
Yummy.
But
it is yummy.
But the inside of the tractor smells like smoke too, thanks to our ranch hands. Anyway, long story. So
now what you think?
Oh no, not that kind of smoke. No, no, campfire smoke. Yeah, I was wrenching on the tractor. They smoked me out. I had the doors open with a campfire. Yeah. Not. Yeah. Anyway. Oh gosh. This is going down a rabbit hole I did not intend. So.
It's so funny.
Yeah, Josh and Scott, it's their fault. Anyway. So how is Cari Ann like a campfire? And the reality is, I've watched many people try to make a fire, even in a fireplace, in prime conditions, try to make a fire and fail and fail and fail. And it's not your fault that you're, maybe struggling to make a fire out in the wild or in your fireplace or wherever. It's not your fault. Rather, you've been taught incorrectly. And this is not me I didn't make this up. I learned this as well because I didn't know it in the past either. But there is something called an upside down fire.
So cool.
And it's very counterintuitive. Like most people, you think about it. And I bring this up in reference to you because this pertains to relationships, all relationships, whether it be a business relationship or a personal relationship, a parent and a kid, all relationships, but certainly like with Cari Ann and her clients. Now she does this kind of intuitively. It's just how she's wired. And most people just aren't wired this way to just naturally do this. Just like you, most of you out there watching this or hearing this, you probably don't naturally make an upside down fire either. Why? It's just not, it's not how you learned. It's not what you do. So an upside down fire is simple. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's building a fire upside down. You think about it in terms of relationship, and I'll use couples because that just kind of it makes the example work a little bit more easily. Where, and I'll make this PG, but let's say that like a guy goes to a bar or whatever and walks up to a girl at the bar that he's never met, and in essence says, "Hey, let's go back to my place and make babies together and live you know, get married and whatever, all that." You know, he'll probably get slapped upside the head. It doesn't work that way. You have to be able to, you know, build trust, you know, through, you know, obviously time spent, but understanding and really kind of, you know, being able to walk in that person's shoes and really, in essence, almost feel what they feel. And there is a fast track way to make that happen. And that is the upside down fire. So let's say, going back to that scenario, maybe, you know, you meet someone wherever you're out and about, whatever, and you meet someone, you just click and you just feel that spark, fire. You feel that initial spark, and then maybe say you go out on a date with this person and, you know, you're feeling the heart flutter and all of these things, right? So think of that like building a fire with kindling. And this is what most people do. They'll go and gather some kindling. You know, here's an opportunity. There's this potential, this spark. Here's an opportunity to light this kindling and get it to start burning. And, you know, maybe you go out on a date and it's really good. And then you go out on another date and that's really good. And you're like, whoa, maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's something here with this person. And so that's you making that spark and having that kindling go. But the problem is, and part of this, without getting in too deep a detail, wood doesn't burn. Most people are like, what are you talking about? Wood, of course, wood burns, but it doesn't burn. It's the gases locked inside the cells of the wood that burn. That's why you can't just walk up to a log, light it on fire and have it burn. It doesn't work that way. You have to extract the gases from the log. And the way to do that is mechanical. You have to heat it. And you have to heat it to such a degree that the gases come out. Those gases will absolutely burn. So that's why you've been trained to start with kindling, trained to start with, you know, just the fire aspect of it. And in real estate, that's really like we were just talking about one of your agents that works with you. He's awesome at connecting with people on kind of topical interests. And that is exactly what it's like, whether it's, you know, a guy picking up a girl at the bar or whatever. You're engaging on those topical interests, different interests probably than in real estate, but nonetheless, and that's you starting the fire with dry kindling. And the reason why kindling is great is because there's a lot of surface area. It's really small, really easy to extract those gases out of all that tiny little surface area of kindling. Really difficult to do on a big log, big piece of wood. So the point of this is that if you understand that, you can fast track all of your relationships. And that is what you do inherently, intuitively. It's just how you're wired. But most people are not wired this way. They can, however, whether it's your agents or, I mean, anyone listening to this, you can do this in all of your relationships, business, personal, kids, all that stuff. It works with everybody. And it's building the fire upside down. So it's the same concept. So you start, if you're out in the woods building a fire, you start with your large things on the bottom. Now that does a couple things when you're out in the wild. It gets your fire up off the wet ground, which is going to keep it from going. And it forces you to build the fire correctly. You start with large pieces and you kind of crisscross a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller, up to your kindling on top. And like what I like to do in our neck of the woods, we have birch trees. We also have pine, from which you can get something called fat wood, which is just very resinous pieces of wood that you can literally light just with a match. Yeah, it's amazing. Like you put a match to it, it starts bubbling in, it is just like, well, like what they make kerosene from. So so that works really well. But so you build this whole fire, it forces you to do what most people don't do. Most people start with a kindling, that surface interest in something, but then suddenly imagine if you're out in the woods, a cloud comes over and starts dripping a few drops of rain, and all you have is your kindling burning, and you're like, uh-oh, this might go out. I better quick gather some more dry kindling. But now the rain is getting everything wet, and you're piling more kindling on there, or something larger. You're like, I need this burning faster. So you put something larger on there and you smother it. You kill the deal, right?
Everyone's killing the deal.
Well, and this becomes
Yeah.
far more crucial today than it was yesterday in your industry. I'm watching you.
Yeah.
I'm watching you, like every transaction, it seems, is far more in depth, is far more work. Not that that's a bad thing, but
No.
I mean, it's sadly often revolves around things like death and divorce and all of this. And that is to your clients a really personal, like a really important thing. And if they don't feel, for you, it's intuitive. Like I say, you just empathize with people. You just do it. But most people, frankly, guys in particular, aren't that good at it. But you can kind of trick yourself into doing it as well if you understand the upside down fire technique. So if you build a fire properly, big stuff on the bottom, little to the top, and then you literally just light the top. I can light a piece of birch bark on the top with a little bit of dry kindling at the very top, and I can walk away from it. And as I'm doing that, I can go out and gather more wood and all that stuff. Most people, like I say, build a kindling. They get like, woo, I got fire. I sparked it. I have fire. I'm the fire god. And then they're running around trying to find more kindling to burn because they didn't collect everything that they need. They did not prepare properly. Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. So
it's true.
It is. So, and that actually is, really important to understand this whole concept. You have to prepare properly. So when you when you build that fire upside down, you are, and I'll explain what that means in terms of you and your clients. But when you build that fire upside down, you're kind of insulating yourself. You're doing a couple things. Remember, you have to extract the gases from the wood, right? So to do that, you do it mechanically, you heat it. Well, how do you heat it? You heat it with fire. So when you start the fire at the top, those little red coals are now dropping down, and that heat is heating up the next layer below, and the next layer below, as all of that drops down, such that eventually those big logs that were at the bottom there, and the ground even that they sit upon, all of that has warmed up enough and dried out enough to the point that you're now extracting wood gases out of those larger logs, and those are starting to burn.
Just fascinating.
And now if a little storm comes over, just like with the relationship, because we all have the storms in every relationship, you and your kids, you and your clients, you and your spouse, we all have the storms that come over. And if you've built your fire properly, a few drops of rain coming over, or even a heavy rain for a short bit, is not going to put out your fire. Your fire may dim and smoke a bit, but you can bring it back. Blow on it a little bit and bring it back. Get some more dry kindling and keep that fire going.
It's a great analogy.
So you can do the same thing with your relationship, meaning you can withstand some bumps in the road if you have that solid base of fire burning. When it comes to how this relates to you, bringing it all back to you again, is you do this, just intuitively, you just function this way. And most people don't. So for those of you, other agents and whatnot, because I've heard many people say, like, I don't know how she does it. This explains how you can do it too. So once you understand that concept, and when you have that kind of surface level interaction with someone else, a date, a client, whatever, and you find something to connect with, now it's incumbent upon you to put on your ears and listen, ask questions and listen to what they say. Start to learn what is important. And if you want to fast track, ask them what's important to them. and pay close attention to the answer. Because when you understand that, like for Cari Ann, for example, if I know, something in real life for us, like I know it's really important that things look a certain way, right? She's got an aesthetic you've probably seen, and other lots of things that she does. It has to look a certain way. So like we were just talking about a chicken coop. I need to build a chicken coop. We're using a shed right now for our chickens. And the chicken coop I want to build, I mean, if it were just me doing it, I would just slap it together and call it a day. Or we were just, Carter and I were just talking about building a smoker, and how, it's like you could just use an old refrigerator. Well, I can't have an old refrigerator sitting outside. It's really important to Cari Ann that whatever it is that I'm creating here has to be beautiful. It has to look great. So once I know that, now I can do exactly what it is that will make her happy, right? So I'm listening, I'm paying attention, and I can adjust what I'm doing to suit her. But when I do that, she will love what I'm doing. And by default, she then reflects that back at me as well. Versus if I just put a couple of refrigerators out there and said, "Hey, I'm gonna smoke some venison." Yeah, that probably wouldn't go over very well. So when you're like with Cari Ann, when she is dealing with these clients, she is building that fire properly and very quickly. She's listening, she's understanding, she's empathetic, and she doesn't just stop at the superficial. She digs in. She's, she said, you say it all the time, everyone has a story. And for her, that story has a start, a middle, and an end. And she's fully into the story. She's not just the start of the story, like, hey, I love to fish, or I love to whatever. It doesn't stop there. It digs in further. It's like, fish with who? Fish with my kids. Oh, you have kids. You know what I mean? It digs further and further to the point of finding out like, oh, I love fishing at a cabin that's been in my family forever, using my grandfather's old boat and motor, and my kids and I are making these great memories. And like, that's a really important piece of the puzzle to me. Like, I want to be able to buy this home, for example, without, like, I can't sell the cabin. The cabin's got to stay.
Accurate.
That sort of thing. So once you have all this information, you have the ability to connect with people on a really deep level. And because there's inevitably going to be bumps in the road, there's things that go wrong, there's, whatever, problems with the house, there's problems with financing, there's problems with whatever, there's all these bumps in the road that can totally derail a deal. But once you have someone like a Cari Ann that has this kind of a connection, that built the fire properly so that when the sprinkles come along and, start putting out the fire, it's easily rebuilt. You can get everyone back around the fire to kind of warm themselves and get back on track and make things happen. This is where, from what I've seen and listened to you, this is what derails most agents, most potential transactions.
Accurate.
They get derailed. And that happens when you don't have that kind of trust, that kind of empathy, that kind of intuitive, ability to really, walk them through it. It's not about the transaction. It's about the end of the story for the client. It's about, at that point, being around that nice warm fire and warming yourself. So that's how, in a long-winded answer, how Cari Ann is like a campfire.
I wasn't expecting that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I know you weren't. Talk about DIY.
It's very accurate. Well, listen, life transition is a beautiful thing, and it can be very, very hard. So thank you for explaining it, because I think a lot of people do struggle to understand the why behind it. There's a lot of people buying and selling real estate out there, and there's a lot of people trying to do this work. And there is a bit of magic behind it. And it's something that everyone can learn how to do if they really want to, but you have to be willing to learn. So thank you.
We learn as we grow.
That's what we say here. Next time we are going to talk about DIY. There's a lot going on.
I'm busy that day. I got stuff to do
So
here.
much to talk about. There's going to be a lot coming out of this young man
I'm not
in
that
2024. All right. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Steve.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. That's a lovely compliment.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We'll see you next time on Fly the Coop.